Chapter 2, Sickness. Unknown POV, late night, location, hidden. I overlooked the preparations for our next show. A smile crept across my face as I remembered who was my next contestant for this show. It wasn't too long ago when the princesses had given me permission to invite the bearers of harmony to our show, and because of popular demand, our first one we would be doing was the element of kindness Fluttershy. This will be our most profitable show since we had first started airing. Oh boy, I can hardly wait. Is everything ready for the next show of Mare Snuff? Princess Luna asked, as she looked down at the smaller mare. Everything is coming along splendidly. I replied, this is going to be our biggest hit yet. The colorful chains and shackles were made to match Fluttershy's mane and coat, with the actual shackles that'll go around her wrists and ankles painted yellow and the chains alternated between pink and yellow. After this, maybe the royal sisters will recognize the success it brought and then we can do it with the other 5 bearers and possibly even the changeling prisoners. I can just imagine how popular I'll be after I take a selfie of me raping the changeling Queen Chrysalis. Then I sighed as I realized that it probably wouldn't happen because by the time she would have gotten to me, both Princess Celestia and Princess Luna would have already had their turn with Chrysalis and would have likely already snuffed her. Overhaul, third-person POV. Chisaki awoke to the sound of heavy knocking on the door. Who was at the door demanding entrance? Though he had forgotten to take his mask and gloves off, he stayed laying down on the couch-turned bed wanting to wait and watch for who it was. It had to be important if they were here at what was probably only about 1:30 in the morning. The sound of knocking paused for a moment before it came back louder than before. Open up already. A rather strong female voice said, or else you're not going to like what I'm going to do. I'm coming. The mare that he came to know as Fluttershy yelled as she trembled with each step as she approached the door. Once she had opened the door, even though Overhaul couldn't see it, Fluttershy's eyes widened. Oh no! A group of 4 tall creatures, who Overhaul came to know that they were named ponies, they're unlike their Earth counterparts and had feet instead of hooves. All 4 of them were mare and a quick glance at their shorts told him that they were hermaphrodites. Which was odd. Chisaki thought that gender was only in stories, and in plays where all the characters were of the female populace. Overhaul knew something was wrong, but he couldn't quite tell yet. Maybe it's just late rent? No, it isn't that. Overhaul opted to just watch for now to properly evaluate the situation and not do anything irrational. Oh no is right. The tall light blue mare said, you've delayed the show for long enough. The final deadline is coming up. Please, I don't want to go. Fluttershy said, as she struggled to get away as the larger mare grabbed her by her wrist. My animals need me, who will take care of them after I'm gone? Now what's all this that's going on? Chisaki said as he approached the group from behind Fluttershy. Oh, you must be the resident who is going live here after her. The towering, light blue, mare said. We are here with the producers of Mare Snuff, and our next contestant is Fluttershy. It shouldn't be long before we are out of your way. Mare Snuff? Chisaki asked in a monotone voice as he scratched an itch on his face. I haven't heard of it, could you tell me about it? Gladly. She said in almost a bubbly manner compared what she was like mere moments ago. Mare Snuff is a reality TV show that airs once every other week. Where we take a random mare from Equestria and rape them until the spark is extinguished, and Fluttershy is rather well known across Equestria, so there is a rather high demand for her to be on Mare Snuff. And to keep things running as efficiently as possible, we will cook her remains and feed them to best-scoring rapist. So you rape mares to death for entertainment. Then after that, you eat them. Yup, the towering mare said, though, it doesn't sound as appealing when you say it like that. Disgusting. Overhaul said under his breath. Sorry, I didn't hear that, could you repeat yourself? This is disgusting, you are all sick in the head. Overhaul said with anger seeping through his mask, cancel the show and release her. That is an order. You know that demanding something to be cancelled that has royal sponsorship is a federal crime, and is punishable by life in prison or public execution. The mayor's voice changed back to her serious tone. Royal sponsorship. Overhaul sighed as his head hung low, shaking it from side to side as he approached while taking off his gloves and dropping them on the wooden floor. Then this means that this isn't just a few hundred with this sickness, but rather a full-blown epidemic. The yellow eye's gaze had been shifted off the floor to the blue mare who had Fluttershy captive, holding her by her wrist. Infernally, Overhaul's eyes were burning with hatred and shrunk pinpricks, they burning with vigor that the world has never seen before. With one quick and powerful motion, Overhaul had lunged at the mare, dragging Fluttershy by her wrist. Overhaul curled his fingers into a fist and extending his thumb outwards, he barely managed to touch the side of her arm, but that was more than enough. In but an instant, his quirk activated, and where a light blue mare once stood was nothing more than a mess as blood rained down from the sky. Her heart landed in front of him with a wet-sounding flop. Overhaul eyed it, making sure that this was the one part of the mare he had spared before he crushed it under his foot as the other mares watched in horror. I now see why he doesn't like doing this. Overhaul said to himself, the blood gets everywhere and is a pain to clean up. A mare with a dark grey fur coat charged at him with rage as she just saw her co-worker be killed as she threw a punch at Overhaul. Why? You little son of a... Overhaul cut off the second mare by using his quirk to disassemble her arm she used to throw a punch with, but that was just an extra outcome of what he was planning. His hand hit the ground, causing it to shatter in a crater around his feet, before he rearranged the destroyed material to make a pair of stone gauntlets on his hands. Overhaul punched the dark grey mare in stomach, sending rocketing into the air. Only but a second later he broke down his gauntlets and rearranged them into one long lance on his right arm. While the lance was still extending to its full length, Overhaul thrusted his arm forward, piercing the dark grey mare's chest. Once he had hit his target, the lance broke into tiny pieces, causing the dead corpse to fall to the ground. He looked over his shoulder and saw the other two mares running for their lives. While this was a mild annoyance, Overhaul was more worried about the one who he was protecting. His yellow eyes looked down to the pink-haired pony who was quivering in fear. Are you okay, Fluttershy? Overhaul asked. I am fine, but what about the other two? Overhaul looked and saw the two other mares that were part of the mare snuff show running away at a great distance. He raised one hand in the mare's direction and slammed it into the ground. The land leading up to the fleeing mares broke into several large chunks before it was rearranged into large spikes all along where the large ditch once was. Overhaul saw that at the end of the spikes that he had successfully hit his target, but it was impossible to tell where he struck the mares, but Overhaul knew he had managed to strike both of them with the same attack. Though it was about a 5-minute walk, Chisaki walked up to the two skewered ponies. The first of the second pair of mares was already dead and had her eyes glazed over after she was completely run through as the sharp edge punctured the lower parts of her lung and completely crushed her rib cage. While the second was still somewhat alive as she coughed up blood. When Overhaul met her gaze, her eyes were filled with a combination of fear and hatred for what he had done. When she opened her mouth, more blood leaked from her mouth. You'll pay for this. The mare muttered in a raspy voice before coughing up more blood. I will not sit back and watch as you rape innocent ponies for fun. He replied, I am the god who you should fear as Overhaul. Cough cough, fuck you. I'd rather you'd not. Overhaul brought his hand up the mare's muzzle and clamped down on it. For the final time tonight, he activated his quirk, causing the mare's head to disperse into a bloody mess which splattered across the ground. Fluttershy watched from a distance as she watched Chisaki kill the final mare. She felt somewhat sorry they all had to die such gruesome deaths, but it was still better than being raped by them. So, should we bury the bodies or let the dead bury the dead? Overhaul replied, waving her off, I'm going to go wash off, then go back to bed. Also, sorry for messing up your yard. Oh. Okay. The nonchalantness in Chisaki's voice scared Fluttershy to the point where she kept her distance from him. The way Chisaki talked made it sound like this was a normal occurrence. This may have been the case for the original Kai Chisaki, but in reality, he was too tired from being woken up in the middle of the night to care much about what happened. As the night grew long, Chisaki didn't know how corrupt this world had become before he arrived, but one thing was for certain, he needed to prepare for an absolute overhaul.